Okay, so we're diving into this whole depression thing because let's be real, it's one of those things everyone talks about, but not everyone really understands.
Right, and it's so important we do unpack this.
It is.
Because it's not just a bad day, right?
Exactly.
It's a serious thing. Like, did you know depression is actually like the leading cause of disability worldwide?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I knew it was a big deal, but like the leading cause.
Globally?
Yeah.
That's insane.
It's huge. And, part of that is because people don't always get what it actually is.
Yeah.
They think, oh, everyone feels down sometimes.
Right.
It's like, yeah, that's true, but there's a difference.
Huge difference.
Right. We're talking almost 10% of adults in the U.S. alone dealing with this.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so how can people tell if it's like actually depression or just like a bad day or a bad week?
Right. So it's like this, you wouldn't tell someone with the flu to just buck up, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, you'll get over it.
Yeah.
Depression is a medical thing.
Okay.
Like any other condition.
So you can't just like
Exactly.
positive thinking your way out of it.
Yeah, it's not about willpower.
Okay.
One of the sources had a good analogy. They said it's like telling someone with diabetes
Right.
to just will their pancreas to make more insulin.
Right.
It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Your brain's chemistry is involved.
So then how do you know? Like, what's the line? How do you actually diagnose it?
Right. So the sources all point to this idea. It's not just a day or two of feeling down. It's like 2 weeks at least of consistent low mood.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then on top of that, you got to have at least 5 specific symptoms.
5. Like, what are we talking about here?
Okay. So it's different for everyone. But think about like appetite changes.
Okay.
Are you sleeping way more than usual? Way less.
Right.
Then there's energy levels, or you just wiped out all the time.
Yeah.
And it can even mess with how you think, like concentrating or making decisions even. It can impact memory too.
So it's like it really starts to affect everything.
It seeps into your whole life, yeah.
Wow. Okay, so it's more than just feeling sad then.
Way more.
Gotcha. It's wild to think about how this like sadness can actually show up physically in the brain.
Yeah, it's like one of the sources said depression isn't just in your head, it's in your brain. And it's true, like we can actually see measurable changes in the brain's structure and activity.
Whoa, okay, hold on. So you're saying when someone's depressed, their brain actually looks different?
In a way, yeah. It's like this, think of your brain as this huge network, right? All these communication lines.
Okay.
And these lines are always buzzing with these messages carried by these little messengers called neurotransmitters.
Oh, like serotonin and dopamine.
Bingo.
Right. Those are the ones you always hear about.
Yeah, exactly. Serotonin, that's your mood guy, keeps things calm and, positive.
Yeah.
And then dopamine, that's all about the reward system, feeling good when you achieve something.
Makes sense. So what happens to them when someone's dealing with depression?
Well, basically, they get out of whack.
Out of whack how?
It's like the volume gets turned down on your serotonin, so it's harder to feel that sense of well-being,
Yeah.
And dopamine takes a hit, too. That's why it's hard to get motivated or enjoy things you used to love.
Oh, wow. So it's like this vicious cycle.
Exactly. It's like your brain gets stuck in this loop of low mood and no motivation.
No wonder it's so tough to deal with.
And to make it worse, these imbalanced chemicals, they can mess with your sleep, too.
Oh, right. Because of that,
Circadian rhythm.
yes, that's it.
Exactly. Your circadian rhythm, it's like your internal clock,
Right.
And it's super sensitive to all these neurochemical shifts.
So basically, depression throws your whole sleep schedule out of whack.
Pretty much. And that just makes everything else worse. Your mood, your energy, your thinking, even.
Like a domino effect.
Exactly.
So it's not just serotonin and dopamine.
Right. Well, they're big players for sure, but it's complicated.
Yeah.
Research is showing that areas of the brain, like those that control your emotions, motivation, even your memory, they can actually shrink.
Shrink. For real?
It sounds scary, but it's often reversible with the right treatment.
Okay, good. Because that's kind of freaking me out.
I know, but your brain is amazing. It can actually change and adapt throughout your whole life.
It can.
One of the sources called it neuroplasticity.
So even though there are like physical changes happening,
Right.
there's still hope.
Absolutely. And that's huge, Understanding the biology of it all, it kind of takes away the blame game.
That's true.
It's not your fault if you have a brain that's wired a certain way or going through these changes.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But if scientists can see these brain changes, why can't they like figure out exactly what causes depression?
million-dollar question, right? It's like this giant puzzle.
Yeah.
And we don't have all the pieces. We know genes are involved.
Right.
Life experiences, stress, trauma.
Right.
All that plays a role, but there's no one thing that determines if someone will experience it.
So it's not like you could just do this one thing and you'll never be depressed.
Nope. It would be nice, though, right?
For sure. So basically, it's this whole mix of nature and nurture.
Exactly. And that makes it tricky to predict or prevent in a one-size-fits-all kind of way.
I see what you mean. So there's no magic solution, huh?
Afraid not. It's way more complicated than that.
Makes you think, though, right? Like, we've learned all this stuff about depression.
Yeah.
But what do we actually do with it?
Now you're talking. That's the million-dollar question right there.
Yeah. Right. Especially if someone's listening and they're worried about themselves.
Exactly. Or someone they care about.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So what then? Where do we even begin?
Well, I think step one is remembering what we talked about earlier.
About.
This isn't a choice. It's a medical condition.
Right. It's not about just snapping out of it.
Exactly. And just like you wouldn't hesitate to tell a friend to see a doctor for a physical problem,
Right.
we've got to encourage people to seek help for their mental health, too.
Which can be tough.
It can.
Because it's not always obvious, right? Like, you can't see depression.
You hit the nail on the head. One of the sources actually called it out. They said, people with depression, they get really good at hiding it.
Really?
Yep. Putting on a brave face for the world.
Wow.
Meanwhile, inside, it's like a whole different story.
That's heavy. So how can we help? Like, what can we actually do to support ourselves and the people we care about?
Knowledge is power, right? The more we understand about depression,
Yeah.
the more we can challenge those old stigmas and create a more supportive environment.
So we should be, like, giving everyone a crash course on serotonin and circadian rhythms.
Not exactly. More like changing the way we think about it, you know?
Okay.
Instead of seeing it as a weakness,
Right.
we start to see it as a treatable medical condition.
I like that.
Because that makes it easier to talk about.
Definitely. But how do we actually start that conversation?
Sometimes the simplest things are the most powerful.
Like what?
One of the sources put it perfectly. They said, sometimes the most helpful thing you can say is, I see you. I'm here for you. And I'm not going anywhere.
Wow. Oh.
Powerful, Ray.
Yeah, just knowing you're not alone.
Exactly. And beyond that, offer to help them find resources, therapists, support groups, even good websites.
Right. There's so much out there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about connecting the dots.
Taking action.
Yes.
Yes.
Because knowing is only half the battle.
I love that. And on that note, I think we've given our listeners a lot to think about today.
We have.
It's been amazing breaking down this complex topic.
It really has.
And remember, folks, depression is real.
Yeah.
It's treatable, and you don't have to go through it alone.
Couldn't have said it better myself.